Well, hello, 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 hello.
Hello.
You just like shoved our
I
dog
just
across the
flung
couch.
the dog. Well, he was asked to move.
Come here, puppy. Come here. You guys should see this face. Come here. It's okay. It's okay. We still love you.
It's okay. Good boy.
So this is Tuesday at. We're early. 6:40.
Uh-oh.
Should we stop?
I wasn't
and come back
really
in 20
paying
minutes?
attention to the time.
Should we just stop and come back in 20 minutes? Or we could talk for 20 minutes and then
No, we'll just start early.
we can't just talk for 20 minutes and then.
I'm sure
start?
we could.
I mean, just talk. Like, let's have a conversation. Hi, guys. How are you?
That's
How was your
interesting.
day? Yeah.
Oh,
that's
really?
Yeah,
Yes.
pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we were thinking the same thing. Yeah.
I doubt that.
I'm Pam.
Hi, Pam.
Hey, what's your name?
I'm Derek.
And what are we doing?
We're having conversations with invisible people.
They are not invisible.
They're invisible to us.
I mean,
Hmm.
not visible. So yeah, they're not visible to us. So yeah, they're invisible to us.
Told you.
Sorry, guys.
So we're going through another study.
We are.
We don't really know how many days this one will be.
We don't. The reason is because the way it's set out in the website for the Doug Britton books, it's set out to go through this whole section one at a time, but there's a lot of scripture reading. There's a lot of questions that kind of like are. We don't necessarily agree with the pattern of the question. How do you explain that?
They're rhetorical.
Yeah.
So
it's like the discussion really. There wouldn't be much discussion.
Yeah. Like, do you ever go through trouble?
Right. Yeah. It's kind of like that. Right? Yeah. So, did Paul ever have hard times? When you just read about all the hard times that Paul had, right?
Yeah.
So, anyways, so that's why we don't know how long each section is actually going to take. Because when we read through it, obviously, a lot of times, like today's one of those times, we'll say, this is going to be a quick video. And then 45 minutes later, we're going, we have got to wrap this up. So, So we don't know.
We're not going 45 minutes today.
No, we're not. We're both very tired.
It's time for bed, honestly.
I mean, like it's 6:43
That's how you know when you're old.
I mean, that's how I know he's old.
I'm younger.
It's cute. Anyways, we were in a battle right before the video about who's in more pain. And obviously, since I have been working out like a ninja, I'm the one who's hurting the most. And so I hit him to prove him wrong. Okay, moving along. So what are we talking about today? I am a ninja.
You're not a ninja.
I'm a ninja.
Have you guys seen Fight Club? It's a wonderful quote I like to say. Just because you shove feathers up your butt, it doesn't make you a chicken.
Honey, you can't say that on...
I just did.
Ignore that.
I can say
Strike
that.
that.
I just
Reverse
said that.
it.
Moving on.
Moving on. What are we talking about today?
Feathers.
No, we're not. Turn to God in the midst of problems. When you go through hard times, how do you usually respond?
I get mad.
Yeah, I would say I get mad and I cry. And I'm one of those people like, you know, people are really thinking you're just mean to our dogs.
They're fine. She's really looking at me angrily now. Anyway,
Okay.
we go through hard times. I get mad, you cry.
Yeah, and I cry because I'm mad. I mean, that's...
And then you get madder because you cried.
Yes. My bosses are aware of this. I've told them.
Cycle.
I would come to my boss with a problem and I'd say, I'm a crier. If I start crying, just ignore it. It's okay. And then I end up crying.
I usually shut up when I get really mad.
Yeah.
Or I talk to myself and hope nobody hears me.
Hmm.
And I generally get mad if I am forced to talk about the problem. I would just rather deal with it quietly in my mind or under my breath where nobody can hear me.
So how would you like to respond?
There was a time when it was a very short time, but there was a time when stuff just kind of rolled past. I breathed through things and didn't nothing really bothered me. That's how I'd like to
Yeah.
return to that time in my life. Not that time in my life, but that way of being able to deal with things.
Right. I don't know that I've ever had that. I've been a pretty stressed person for as long as I can remember.
It was
Go ahead.
it was a it was a bad philosophy, but it was a philosophical thing when I considered if it was matter, it didn't matter. So, yeah. I mean, it's a bad philosophy. Anyway, long story short, it's kind of true in that, like, eternally it doesn't matter. And generally, in the short term, it doesn't matter as much as I think it does.
Okay. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Partially.
You know.
Yeah. I think basically what you're saying is your thoughts before was if it's matter, like all matter.
It was an illusion anyway, so it really didn't matter.
But now what you're saying is the physical things that are happening to us aren't the important thing.
Right. It doesn't mean that we don't have to respond to them or
right.
that it shouldn't be upsetting sometimes, but it probably shouldn't affect me as, I guess, as deeply as it does sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, as I was trying to say,
sorry,
I've been a very high-strung, stressed out person for a very long time. So I can't say that I want to go back to any place that I was, because I can't really say that that was ever a good place as far as like dealing with stress. Like I've never dealt with it well. I mean, you can agree with that. I understand. It's okay.
With that.
It's okay to agree with that.
I do.
So I don't really have a place that I want to go back to. What I would like to go to looking forward, I mean, I can say that I've worked, because I've talked about how I have anxiety, like clinical anxiety, right? So I take medications, whatever, for it. But I have noticed I'm back into it because it's kind of like ebbs and flows, right now. I'm kind of back in a peak of anxiety. So when I can tell that that's happening is when I'm waking up in the middle of the night with anxiety, like pouring sweat and being real upset, and not even like because I had a dream and I don't remember it and maybe whatever that was bad. But I mean that happens too. But like I'll have a dream that I don't know the dogs needed to go out, but I couldn't find the door handle or something, something stupid like that, and I will wake up and have to talk to myself about why that's stupid, that's stressing me out, knowing the whole time that it wasn't real, but now I'm still stressed out about it.
Because they're going to pee on the floor.
Right. So, I mean, I'll wake up in the middle of the night with stress from dreams like that, or I'll wake up in the middle of the night and just already stressed, and I'll sit there and try to figure out why I'm stressed, which is probably the worst thing that I could possibly do.
Yeah.
Because then I start coming up with a line of thoughts about why I should be stressed. Probably not the best option there. But
yeah,
I'm saying all that to say a year ago when I would go through this, it was bad.
Yeah.
It was bad. But I mean, you didn't even know that I was going through this again, did you?
No.
And what does that say?
You're handling it better.
Handling it much better. I'm also not taking medication for it as much as I was, because the medication I was taking is just as needed. And I don't. Honestly, I don't remember the last time I took it. Maybe a month or so ago.
It's good.
So, I mean, I would say that I'm getting better. I would say without God, I probably wouldn't have gotten here. Really? Come here, Aiden.
Oh my goodness.
Come on, Bucky.
Come on. You have it.
He said no.
Go ahead.
Gosh, I can't remember where I was going with this. Anyways, without God, I wouldn't have gotten here. Because where I was in a very bad place, and I couldn't find the peace that I needed to get past it until I really started praying about it and made it important to talk to God about it versus talk to God about it because I couldn't figure it out myself. I kind of switched my way of thinking that, because before it was like, okay, do everything you can. If that doesn't work, talk to God. It's your last resort. It should never be that way. Your first resort should be God. I mean, because the rest of it, you're just wasting your time. So that's all I got to say about that.
That's all I got to say
That's all
about
I got to
that.
say about that. I think we're just going to kind of talk a little bit about there's a lot of verses that you can find in the Bible. Oh, there's a lot of them in the Bible. There's a lot of verses you can find that can be your power verses. Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
The term I'm looking for. Well, hi, honey. Did you want me?
Oh, they're so needy right now. They're just so needy.
You're okay. She's all shaking. What
They're
did you do
never
to this poor
needy
baby?
like this until we're doing this.
Stop it. So funny. Don't you lick me. Anyways, so it's good to have power verses. There are books that you can actually get that will break it down. Like if you're having trouble with money, there's these verses that are about that. If you're having trouble with faith, there's verses about that. If that's something that can help you out, that would be a great starting point. And honestly, I'm not doing this either, but this is what I would suggest. And maybe I'll start doing it now that I'm saying it out loud. Take those verses. That's great. You should. You should have some kind of foundation. But then go back and read the rest of it. The rest of that chapter. Have some grounds for where that's coming from. Because I do know that there's a lot of times when people take just bits and pieces of verses and they're taking it out of context, and so they're using it to their advantage, but not really realizing, well, yes, God said that I'm going to do this for you, but he also said, but I'm asking you to do that, because as we've talked about before, God always asks you to take an action.
Yeah.
And he never says, I'm just going to give you everything. He says, I'm going to give you all of this, but I need you to do this. And so I would say, read through those power verses, have memory verses that you keep in your head for struggles and times when you're in the middle of something you can refer back to quickly. But I would really say that you need to go and you need to study the whole chapter, not just that verse, because as you're saying these words and bringing them to God's attention, you need to know what you're really saying. And if you're just speaking some words because it sounds right to your situation, what you want, and you don't know where it came from, you may not be speaking the right words. You may be,
A lot of people treat the Bible as like almost a spell book.
Yeah.
Like if this bad thing is happening, I can say this magic word or these magic words and the problem's gone. There's power in the word.
Mm-hmm.
There's power through faith in the word, and it's not just the act of speaking it. You have to, like you said, you have to know what you're saying.
Right. Yeah.
Then there's authority behind it.
And I'm not saying, I don't know if you guys know what kind of books I'm talking about. What is the one that we have, the little red one?
It's, I think it's called God's Promises or something like that. They're
Something
topical
like
index
Yeah,
books.
and they're great. And I'm not saying that they're bad books, and I'm not saying you shouldn't learn a lot of those just to keep in mind for moments like that, something that you can say to yourself, but know what you're saying.
Yeah.
If that's the verse that sounds good to you, that kind of rings good with you, that you feel like is speaking into your situation, great. And it more than likely is. But that probably means you need to read the rest of it.
Yeah.
if it's speaking into your situation, the rest of it's going to speak into your situation too. Um, don't just pick and choose because the words sound great. Let it speak to you, because like you said, God's words are living words, and that's not just some churchy term. It's the living word. Can you explain that further?
So, yes and no. I can give like examples. So two people can read the same words, the same scripture, and it will affect both of them differently. Like we've all been to church where the pastor is delivering a sermon, and you walk out saying that was just for me. Like that was speaking. I know that message was just for me. But then 70 other people are as well. So yeah, it was just for you, but it's not just for you. So the word is supernatural, and I use that word loosely. It's above our ability to rationalize. So yeah, God can speak one word to one person, like he did in the Bible, where he spoke to Noah or he spoke to Moses. But that's speaking to us. It was written down for us. So
yeah, it's crazy to think, but this wasn't just people writing with ink and paper, um, because when these words were spoken, spoken, um,
there's a lot of quotation marks.
Jesus knew that when you read this, you were going to need this at this time.
Yeah.
He knew that all that many years ago. He knew that you were going to read this, and it was going to ring true to you.
Yeah.
He knew that. And he knew that someone else was going to read that exact same section, and it was going to ring true to them in their situation that's completely different. And that's how the word is the living word. I think that might be something we might talk a little more about maybe in our small group next week, because I think that people hear living word, but they don't really understand it. It becomes a churchy word.
Yeah. One way that you can look at it, so that there's two scriptures. One is in Genesis, and that's in the beginning. God created the heavens and the earth, and then in John it says, "In the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God. The Word was God." And later on, and then it says everything was created through Him, through the Word, but it refers to the Word as a Him.
Mm-hmm.
And then it says the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld His glory, the glory of the Father, the only begotten of the Father. So the Word is not just a ink on paper.
Right.
It's living, because before Jesus was embodied in a human form, he was the spoken word of God. He was when the Spirit gave utterance to the words that were penned on paper, that was from Jesus. So it's hard to define what that is. It's more of something that you can grasp, but it's hard to explain. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that I've heard people. I mean, it doesn't happen often, but I have heard people make the comment of, "Yeah, I read the stuff in the red letters," and it's just like, okay, so I get it. That's what everybody thinks of. Jesus spoke these words. These words are directly from Jesus. Yeah, they all are. I mean, they're all important. None of them are there by mistake. And I guess that's just why I think that it's important. Yes, I think we should have these power scriptures, And honestly, I don't have them memorized myself, but I feel like um, the it's great to have these power scriptures. It is wonderful to have these power scriptures, but it should just be a beginning. It should be somewhere for you to start. If you don't have a clue where to start and you're going through some stuff, that's a great way to find it. Go and find one of those books. Find the subject you're looking for. Start there, but don't stop there.
Yeah. One thing that can help is that if you have a physical Bible, especially for whatever, I mean, the way your mind works, you get familiar with an object, and you're able to, if you're using highlighters or something, you'll remember colors in, you'll remember like the vicinity in a book that something is written, and you'll remember that you highlighted it in green. So you may not remember chapter and verse, but you can go through there and you can find it quickly if you have read that enough to be familiar with it. So one thing that helps is having a physical Bible, reading it often, but reading even so, like if you're reading, if you're doing a study, and that's one thing. But sometimes it's good to spend a month just in one book. You can read all the other stuff you want to read, as long as you're reading that section even of a book every day for that month. Eventually, it's going to be, you may not be able to quote it verbatim, but you'll know when you hear it wrong. You'll know if somebody misquotes it. But those scriptures will come to mind later. So a situation comes up, and somebody may ask you a question, and you're like, "Oh yeah, it's right here. This is what happened."
Yeah.
So it's just the familiarity that in those situations, those things will come to mind, or you'll be able to give them to somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. So there you go. I mean, honestly, I don't see what the problem is. Why am I not doing this? Because honestly, I like reading Isaiah.
Yeah.
I like reading Psalms. I like reading Proverbs. Yet I have not sat down and read them. And I think, kind of like Pastor George has talked about this, and I think we've mentioned it before actually, prayer. There is something against you having prayer because I know every single one of you has experienced this. As soon as you start praying, you start falling asleep, can't stay awake.
Yeah.
You cannot tell me, you will never convince me that that's not spiritual. You'll never convince me of that. And I love to read Isaiah. I love to read Psalms and Proverbs. I don't do it. Why? Why is that? Why? I mean, I know I've spent many, many nights, not recently, but many, many nights reading Anne Rice. I mean, you know, like I spent time like feeding my brain with that stuff, right? So why wouldn't I feed my brain with something that's going to be healthy for it and that I actually enjoy reading? I mean, I'm not saying, I'm going to be honest, I don't enjoy reading the whole Bible, but why don't I start in where I do enjoy and then just go from there? You know, I just really feel like we all really need to be feeding our souls with this, especially with everything that's happening right now.
Yeah.
I'm almost more afraid now that things are opening up than I was when we were all told to stay at home.
Yeah.
Even though I was still having to go out there, and I still had, I had issues with that. It's a different thing for me now because before it was a little controlled. Yeah. I don't think COVID-19 has gone away. It may have, it may be weakened.
Yeah, well, the United States had 4,000, I think it was 4,000, 6,000 deaths, COVID-related deaths in 4 days.
6,000?
6,000.
I didn't realize it was that
much.
In
4 days. So it's not gone.
No, it's not gone. And who knows why those numbers are up. And I'm not, and we're not like trying to spread fear or anything like that. The point is that I have more fear now than I did 3 weeks ago.
It's just a good reminder of why we even started this in the first place. why it was on your heart
Mm-hmm.
to do this, why our perspectives shifted. The dangerous part is when the restrictions are completely lifted and our hearts are no longer focused.
Right.
That's the real danger.
Yeah, we were watching Los Angeles. What year was that? That movie, the black and white movie we were watching the other day?
Oh, 1912.
1912. Okay, so it was Los Angeles 1912, right? And I was watching it, and they're recording a car driving because it was fascinating. Anyways, and in the background it's Los
Oh,
Angeles.
sorry, that was the one you're talking. I'm sorry,
Yeah, go ahead.
my bad. That was like that was 1954, I think.
Okay, it was 19 early. Okay. Anyways, um, you can see in the background it was filled with smog,
Yeah,
and I was telling Derek, I was like, it was back then. Los Angeles was filled with smog, yet through this, the smog's gone.
yeah,
I mean, can you imagine? Back then, there was already so much in the air that there was smog everywhere in Los Angeles. But now, in a matter of a couple of months, it's gone.
yeah.
So, I mean, we've done a lot of bad things to the earth, but that just proves to me how reversible it is.
Yeah.
If there's a lot of good things that has happened through this, I think that I think maybe that's what scares me is that we weren't in it long enough for it to really sink in.
Oh yeah.
And people are there was a lot of like desire to get back to normal and get social again. We weren't social before, people.
Yeah, right.
I mean, we weren't. We may have went places in public, but we sat on our phones in public. I mean, we weren't social, right?
Yeah.
So my hope for everybody is that they don't ever lose that feeling 100%. They don't ever lose the feeling of this is good to be a family.
Yeah.
And this is good. We can do this instead of, going out to eat. You don't have to go out to eat.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that may be an unpopular opinion right now because, people are wanting to support small businesses. That's great. If you're going to go out to eat, go to small business. But, there's a lot of healthy things that we can do that people just seem to not realize they could do before.
Yeah. I think now is a great time to really illustrate the wishy-washiness of society itself. There's a reason, like I said, and we've said this before, that our focus turned to God. Not to say that we weren't living for God before, but there as a global phenomenon, I guess there was a turn toward God. So if you look at that and you compare that to say the inaccessibility of face masks during the first panic wave, I guess, or toilet paper, because that'll save your life.
I'm still mad because I still can't get paper towels, apparently.
Yeah.
Or aloe for your hair.
So, if you look at that now, nobody could get masks because they just sold out, and all these people were freaking out because they couldn't get masks, and I mean, kind of rightly so. But now, if you go to the store, you get laughed at if you're wearing a mask. So the perception and the wishy-washiness and the inconsistency of people. If you find yourself all of a sudden not looking for God like you were, look at that in the light of when there's trouble, people turn to God, and when there is ease, I guess you'd call it, people turn away from God.
Right.
We all do it. I do it. Everybody does it. And then look at Israel as our example in the Bible. That's exactly what they did, and that's why it's there. And that is another example of it's a living word. It feed or it speaks into our society and our situation. And the only consistency through all that is God.
And that's a pretty good point. It's something they brought up in this section. But so that's the difference between peace from your situation versus peace from God. Because peace from your situation, everything's going good, you've got peace. Everything's bad, you don't have peace, right? Peace in God means that in good times you're going to rejoice. In hard times you're going to rejoice because you know you're being taken care of. Yeah. And sometimes that's hard. It's a daily thing. Every day you have to pick up your sword, right? So every day you have to pick up your armor, your shield. Every single day you have to do it. Every day you have an action you have to take. And you have to keep putting your faith in God. But if you're using God as a last resort, you're not putting your faith in God. You're not getting your peace from God. You're still getting your peace from the situation. You're just trying to change your perspective of what the situation is. And that, I don't want anybody to take that wrong. I don't want you to be in a bad situation and focus that it's a bad situation. I do want you to focus on God's going to help you. But don't lie to yourself and tell yourself you're not in a bad situation anymore. Yeah. You are still in a bad situation, but that's okay. If you're trying to trick yourself to believe that you're not in a bad situation just so you can get through it and then forget about God, then you're not putting it in God's hands. You're still holding on to it yourself, and you're just using God as your crutch.
Yeah. So today's reading showed a lot of David's prayers to God, and he acknowledged his troubles, but he acknowledged God in his troubles. So I think that's important. It is okay to fall on God when you're in trouble, but it's not okay to like you said, use him as a crutch,
right?
Because of
he's not your genie.
Well, there's that. Yeah. He doesn't live in a bottle.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would also like to point out that David loved God. David also had a tendency to, when he was upset with God, he didn't say, God, I don't really understand. He was like, why are you leaving me? Why? How long is this going to happen? You know, he had real conversations with God. You know, so don't be afraid to do that. You had that kind of conversation when you actually were saved. Yeah. You had that kind of conversation with God. And I'm not saying that every time you're upset about something, go and yell at God about it, because no, don't do that.
Yeah.
But be real with God. If you're in a situation and you just don't understand what's going on and you're upset, you're angry, be real with God. Tell him that. He already knows anyway. So trying to sugarcoat it and play around is going to do you no good, because he knows everything you're already thinking. But there's some relief, at least for me, there's some relief to know that I don't have to be reserved when I'm talking to God, because you know, God knows my heart. So if I'm not speaking my heart, then I'm basically lying, you know? So keep that in mind. I think that does help to kind of give you less of a reason to take it all on yourself, because we have a tendency to, or at least, okay, I can speak for myself, can't speak for everybody, but I have a tendency to think, well, I don't want to go to God for this because I'm kind of ashamed of, you know, whatever I've been doing in the situation or whatever's gotten me to this situation. You don't have to be like that. Yeah. You don't have to keep that control, because God loves you. God knows what's happening already, and he's going to love you anyway. Yeah. So don't take the control. Don't try to keep the control. They say let it go and let God. That's a hard thing to do, but the more you learn to do that in situations when things aren't so bad, the better you're going to be when it comes to situations that are bad. So start praising God in your situation wherever you are now. It's like a muscle. The more you work it out, the more it becomes muscle memory, the stronger it's going to be, so that when you are trying to lift up the world on your shoulders, God can be there to help you hold that up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not even sure if we really went by this study today at all, but I know we took some things out of it. Yeah, but
there were words.
There were words. Anyways, apparently this is what we need to talk about. So Monday night at 7 p.m. we will be trying this whole Zoom thing again. Again, we didn't have anybody, and that's okay. We would obviously like to visit with you guys. I am not quite ready to go out and be social with more than like 4 people. I went to my sister's for Mother's Day.
Yeah.
And they did so good the whole time. They didn't make fun of me or anything. I was really proud because it's that kind of family. They like to tease you. But because I was doing the whole social distancing thing, didn't really want to give anybody hugs or anything. Well, my nephew came home from work and he hadn't been there the whole time, so he didn't know. And just being a sweet kid, he comes up and he gives me this great big hug. And that was all they needed. So everybody came and hugged me. I felt like I needed to spray disinfectant spray all over me. Anyway, so I guess I'm not quite ready for all that. This whole social distancing thing and quarantine thing maybe has made me revert back. I don't know, revert back to, but I've always liked to be around a bunch of people, so I don't know what I'm reverting back to, but
I've been fine with this whole thing.
Yeah.
As far as the isolation goes.
Yeah, even when he goes out to places, half the time I'm like, you go ahead and go, I'm going to stay home. Because I want my alone time. I'm like, you go ahead and go, I'll be here.
Yeah.
I don't know where this all came from, guys, but yeah, so I don't know what situation you're in, but I know in my situation, I like I said, there's a different level of fear for me right now. So I do have to lean on God a lot and have to realize that it's going to be okay. And it will. I mean, I know it will. Being a nurse, you kind of learn to treat everybody like they have something already. So that situation, that's not a big deal, but it's like knowing now that you're going to be around hundreds of people that possibly have something.
I just treat people like that anyway. You've got something and I don't want it.
Anyways, so all of this was to say I'm not ready to meet in groups somewhere yet. But I do want it back and forth. I love his voice. But sometimes I want to hear somebody else's. But
that's all we've got for you today.
All right, Derek's going to pray you out. We will see you guys on Monday.
Oh, my dogs.
At 7. And I'll post the Zoom link in the group. So you'll just click on the link and it'll take you straight to Zoom. If Zoom doesn't seem to work out for everybody, we're going to kind of be looking at other platforms. But as of right now, Zoom is the one we know. Yeah. I know Facebook has one that we're going to kind of look a little bit more into, but Zoom is the one we'll be using for now.
All right.
Okay.
God, thank you for this day, this time that you've given us, for the freedom to come before you, to read your word, to openly talk about you, to talk about our problems to you. God, thank you for being constant in our good times and in our bad times. Thank you for giving us license to complain to you. And thank you for being good enough to hear us out. God, I pray that you would open our hearts to your real truth, your love for us, your patience for us. Help us to start to comprehend what that really looks like so that we can know you better and know you like a friend and like a father. Help us as we transition. I know this is a strain for a lot of people. Pray that you would help comfort them through this, just through this turbulence of going back into what was normal and now is more strained, I guess. So we thank you for what you're doing, and pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right.
All right.
That's all we got.
We'll see you Monday at 7 for the Zoom, and then next Tuesday at 7 for our live.
And Jeff Martin is waving. I don't know if you're still there, Jeff, and Rod Nedlows. So, yeah, we can't see you when we're doing this because the camera's facing the other way. Goodbye.
Bye.
Wait, it didn't go by.